Audio testing, 1, 2, 3.
Can we do a double check of assembly members on the phone? Just chime in if you're on the phone.
This is
I'm
Crystal
here,
Kennedy.
Austin Quinn Davidson.
Was this Austin Quinn Davidson?
Austin and Crystal.
Austin, could you please say the alphabet? You're a little bit muffled, and we're going to try and modulate the sound here, please.
Sure. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Perez-Verdia, are you on the phone?
Yes, sorry. Yes, this is Cameron Perez-Verdia. Can you hear me?
Cameron, you're not
Hello?
quite loud enough. Can you say the alphabet A to D, please?
Sure. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O.
Okay, thank you. You're a little bit soft. If you might be able to get a little closer to your mic. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
I now call to order this special meeting of the Anchorage Assembly. It is Thursday, February 24, 2022. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Weddleton.
Here.
Ms. Allard.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Mr. Rivera.
Present.
Ms. Kennedy.
Here.
Ms. LaFrance.
Here.
Mr. Constant.
Here.
Ms. Zalatel.
Here.
Mr. Dunbar.
Here.
Mr. Perez-Verdia.
I'm here.
Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Wilbanks, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Peterson, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Certainly, Madam Chair. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture of appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. It is an actionable statement that marks our collective movement towards decolonization and equity. The Anchorage Assembly would like to acknowledge that we gather today on traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. And it is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize their contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina.
Thank you. Before we move on to the only item on the agenda tonight, well, first of all, welcome all of you for joining and being here, whether you're in person or online. We are happy to have you participating in local government. I will turn now to Mr. Dunbar, who has requested a moment of personal privilege.
So we're, thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I promise to not make an assembly comment unless something happens in the interim. I just wanted to acknowledge that tonight, on the other side of the world, a great number of people may be losing their lives in the Ukraine. My colleagues know that I lived for 2 years in the former Soviet Union, a stone's throw from the Russian border. I studied the Russian language and live with a Russian family. I have tremendous respect for the Russian people and the Russian culture. But what Vladimir Putin and the Russian nation are doing right now is an illegal violation of the laws of war. It is a terrible human rights violation, and we should condemn it in the strongest terms. There are very brave Russians right now speaking out for peace in places like St. Petersburg and Moscow. And there are Ukrainians, both civilians and in the military, that are fighting and dying as the invasion commences. Alaska has a substantial Ukrainian population, and I know many of them will not be sleeping tonight. And I would ask my fellow Alaskans to hold them in our thoughts. And I was glad to see that our federal delegation condemned this invasion. And I hope that all of us as Alaskans can hold the Ukrainian people in our thoughts and condemn this terrible invasion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. So now I will turn to Mr. Constant, who is the chair of the Reapportionment Committee, with a few words on the process. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. Tonight we have before us the first public hearing of at least two that are going to be held on the reapportionment process for our upcoming decade after the census. As most of you know, we have received from the state on November 10th their final plan, which triggered a malapportionment at the Assembly, which we declared on the 23rd of November, which is particularly challenging this year because we are adding a 12th member, which requires substantial change to the boundaries of most of the districts. Tonight is, as I said, the first public hearing. Tomorrow, we will hold a work session, and then from there, after that work session, a brief committee meeting. The intent of the work session tomorrow is to take into consideration any feedback from tonight from members of the public, and also to consider any changes that members may be interested in making. But rather than taking any action tomorrow on changes, what we'll do is establish a process by which members will be provided the resources to draft and submit amendments to any of the substitute versions or the original ordinance that's in the packet and that we're hearing tonight. And so tomorrow's process really will result in an agreement among the members on how to proceed forward to getting any final amendments and then submitting them to be considered as we hear it for the second time on March the 1st at the public hearing, and then whatever action the body determines to take after that. So tonight, I'm excited that we're here for the first official public hearing and looking forward to the next week or two or three as we conclude this process.
Thank you, Mr. Constant, and I will just note that the work session tomorrow is noticed from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. It's at City Hall in room 155. It will be followed by a meeting of the Reapportionment Committee from 2:30 to 3 p.m., also in room 155 at City Hall. And with that, we will now take up item 4A, first public hearing, ordinance number AO 2022-37, an ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly providing for reapportionment of the Assembly election districts.
Waive reading.
Public testimony is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Actually, let's start first with the phone list. We have one person, so we'll go ahead and call Ms. Stoddard.
Hello, this is Gretchen.
Hi, Ms. Stoddard.
Hi.
Hi, this is Suzanne LaFrance with the Anchorage Assembly, and I am calling you for public testimony on AO 2022-37 regarding reapportionment. Will you be will you be speaking on behalf of the Huffman O'Malley Community Council?
Yes.
I will set your timer for 5 minutes.
Hey, it should be considerably shorter than 5 minutes. My name is Gretchen Stoddard. I live on Arboretum Street in the area of the Huffman O'Malley Community Council. Thank you for the having this public testimony period. I do want to say that we support the maps that keep Hillside together in one map. There remains one map that has a section of it still moving over into the Eagle River District, and that is the map that we do not support. Those maps that keep our Hillside community, we are one community. I live at what some might consider a dividing line, apparently, between locations with different lot sizes. Different lot sizes is not something that divides up our community. It's that division is right in the middle of our community, and it does not make some people living in upper hillside areas more similar to those living in Eagle River. But just expressing support. We did submit a written reapportionment resolution, and this is expressing support for the maps that keep the hillside community together in one district. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Stoddard. Welcome. We'll go ahead to in-person testimony. Please state your name for the record, your community council, or the area of the municipality in which you live. And I didn't mention this before opening the public hearing, but if folks would keep their comments focused on the item before us and any suggestions for amendments or changes, that's always helpful too. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm a blue-collar worker. I'm here, I've been very busy, and trying to keep up with what you guys are doing. And I'm asking you guys to consider not actually making these changes until after the election. From what I've been hearing, listening to different various places, you do have some community councils who have asked you guys to give them more time. And these community councils oftentimes fully support your side of the table. So I can't understand why you want to ignore their requests and rush it through. My thoughts are you're wanting to rush it through because you know that 4 of you are up for election, and it can cause some confusion and maybe allow you to call false on the election process. But that's my most concern. Is I would really implore upon you to consider the fact that we already have an election in process. We've got people who have been spending a great deal of money to run their campaigns, and then you also have some community councils who are requesting more time. And I think that if you were upstanding individuals who actually want to support your community and be good people, that you might want to consider waiting to set the date of change of whatever you're doing until after the election is complete. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please state your name for the record, your community council, or the area of the community in which you live.
Jordan Harari, District 4. My testimony today is a little bit of concern, as well as the previous speaker. I would highly suggest that with the political climate the way that it is, and with most of you up here considered untrustworthy at best, that you push this reapportionment process till after the election later this year. Just an example, map 6, I guess version 2, which is one of the maps up for consideration, was proposed by a group called Action Anchorage, which says it's nonpartisan, but if you go to its Facebook page, and I'm quoting here, their About section is, Anchorage Action is a nonpartisan group of individuals who are concerned about the new direction of division and high partisanship that our city is taking. We are here to network, speak out against the diversive nature of propaganda being proliferated by the far right, and be politically active for positive change in our city of Anchorage. Really? That's one of the maps up for consideration by a group that divisively calls out a whole subsection of the population that they don't like? That's a lot of BS. And that's just the first map. So I think, from my perspective, this needs to be pushed. We need to get out of this political mumbo-jumbo and bring in fresh people. Whoever shows up, that's what the city wants. That's who we'll have. And those people should be able to decide what map we have. Of the current maps proposed, in the current situation, I believe that the map proposed by Assemblymember Allard and the Bronson administration is probably the best in terms of natural districts, following Minnesota and Northern Lights. If you were to talk to most people in Anchorage, what does downtown start? Probably north of Northern Lights. Where does West Anchorage start? West of Minnesota, that kind of stuff. That's cool. Weddleton's map is interesting. It's not as flowy, so I would suggest if there are amendments to those two maps, maybe the two of you could get together and try to combine somehow. That would be great. Anything else? Yeah. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome.
Am I on?
You're on.
All right, hello, my name is Julie. I'm a resident of District 6, Vice President of the Huffman O'Malley Community Council, board member of HALO, but I'll be speaking on my own behalf tonight. I strongly object to Map 7, which combines the hillside with District 2 Eagle River. It does not pass the one-person, one-vote standard. It is not contiguous nor compact. The vast majority of the comments online speak to these points, but the committee either did not read or weigh those comments and chose to move Map 7 forward anyway. My preference is Weddleton Map 11 version 2. I'd like to address the committee's public process. At the February 15th meeting in which I attended, my representative proposed an additional public hearing in response to community councils wanting more time. I was offended and appalled by the way in which community councils were characterized at that meeting. It's one thing to deny a request from multiple councils. It's another to malign and belittle us. The irony is 3 hillside community councils, Rabbit Creek, Huffman O'Malley, Hillside, and the HALO organization have done the work and submitted resolutions and comments. Not one of the committee members have ever mentioned publicly that all the Hillside Community Councils and the HALO organization oppose this pairing. I see no evidence that submitted comments are weighing in as a factor in your decision. I take issue with the members of the committee saying that the public has known for months. Your posted timeline is not a fair representation of what happened. For example, on the timeline it says December 29th, as draft maps released. Yeah, that was 2 months ago, but none of those draft maps are even in the final 4. Also on your timeline, the January 28th meeting, you were to review the town hall feedback. I could hardly call it a review, but a mention by staff, and ultimately the feedback was minimized with the idea that the lawyers needed to determine what boundaries were appropriate. At that meeting, the committee still hadn't even established their own criteria to select maps. That was just 27 days ago. I've also attended many meetings and town halls, most of which consisted of presentation and information, not community input. The main problem is 2 of the 4 maps were not submitted to the committee or ready for public review until February 14th. That was 10 days ago. 10. The other 2 maps were revised, and they've been available for 15 days. It's not unreasonable for the community councils to ask for a 2-week extension to educate our community. We've been doing the work. It takes time to get the word out. The hillside has a lot at stake, and we have until May 23rd, so there's time. As the court said in the current redistricting case decision, you must prove that you have a good faith effort to incorporate public feedback. You cannot simply ignore the preponderance of public testimony and make decisions based on single members' personal views. Please slow down the process and incorporate public feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Welcome. Please state your name for the record, your community council, or the area of the community in which you live.
Hi, my name is Yarrow Silvers. I live in East Anchorage. I want to talk tonight about Map 7. I've heard this map characterized by the Eagle River members as a gerrymander, and I just wanted to speak to that. Map 7 is not a gerrymander. This map pairs the most socioeconomically similar part of Anchorage with Eagle River for the constitutionally recognized purpose of lowering deviations. It is contiguous and compact. In the maps which keep Eagle River separate from Anchorage, Eagle River is underpopulated, with about 2,000 fewer people than the overpopulated districts of Anchorage. Adding to that disparity is the fact that the Eagle River District is bolstered with over 12,500 people that mostly don't vote in Alaska. In fact, just over 500 people on J-Bear voted in the last assembly election. So essentially, District 2 elects 2 assembly members with about 14,000 less population than the Anchorage districts elect their representatives with. That's a huge disparity which strays far from one person, one vote principles. It's a pretty sweet deal for Eagle River, and I'm not surprised that they would throw out loaded terms like gerrymander to maintain the status quo. I find this framing especially disingenuous given that one of the Eagle River members testified in support of the Muldoon-Eagle River state redistricting gerrymander, which was done for the unconstitutional stated purpose of giving Eagle River the opportunity to have more representation. Map 7 addresses the disparity of vote power between the districts by splitting J-Bear between downtown and Eagle River and creating a map that allows for low deviations. It allows downtown to spread into 4 districts instead of 3, which allows all of Anchorage to share equally in the community changes necessary with this reapportionment. It pairs the most socioeconomically similar part of Anchorage with Eagle River. These 2 areas have similar characters and issues with wells and large lots and are affluent as well as majority white population. Under this configuration, Eagle River and South Anchorage are both still able to control 1 district each. Nothing changes there. I realize that no one wants to be paired with Eagle River, and this unequal voting strength in favor of Eagle River voters may end up being the price we are willing to pay to keep them separate. I find it quite ironic, though, that when it was diverse, low-income areas of Muldoon being paired with Eagle River, people just figured that they would silence us. But when it's the socioeconomically similar areas with wealthy donors that are proposed to be paired with Eagle River, people want to choose less equitable and possibly less legally defensible maps instead. In closing, I would like to encourage all of the assembly members to look outside their districts and do the hard work of adopting a fair and equitable map for all of Anchorage. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak?
My name is Gretchen Stoddard, and I did speak on behalf of Community Council earlier. I just want to speak for myself.
And actually, no? Ms. Stoddard, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
But thank you. Actually, Mr.
Madam Chair.
Gates, one moment, I'm going to check in with Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates, would you be able to weigh in, please, regarding a second testimony? We have a member of the public who testified representing a community council. Is she able to testify again as herself? I know that in the past we have interpreted that the section of code to be that only once is permitted. Would you verify?
I think that our historical practice is probably the best guide in that area. I don't think the code exactly clearly specifies an answer to that question, but I think it's quite reasonable what our historical practice has been. Ultimately, I think it's a chair ruling.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Mr. Constant?
Thank you, Mr. Gates. I would point us to the code where it reads, each individual giving testimony shall be allocated 3 minutes. The time limit for a designated representative of a community council is 5 minutes. Does that intimate that a person may in fact speak in both of those cases?
That's what the code says, but I don't think that gives us, really clear answer to the specific question here. I think you can interpret it both ways, actually. Again, historical practice is probably our best guide, and
I'll go ahead and move through the queue. Ms. Allard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would encourage the body to reconsider and allow Ms. Stoddard to testify, as she's here representing the community council is one thing, but to represent herself is another. We've had numerous occasions where individuals have come, let's give an example, Providence Hospital, because they're ahead of the hospital and they come to testify. If they wanted to personally come up and testify and use those 3 minutes, we should be able to do that. Everybody should be heard in their personal and on their professional level. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. I will go through the queue. We don't have a motion on the floor, but I think it's appropriate to continue. Mr. Weddleton?
I guess I'm scratching my head and going, what would the motion be? I've for decades been comfortable enough with the idea that if I spoke as a community council member, I didn't get to speak individually. But it does smack as unfair where you're kind of reading a statement from a group and that takes away your right to speak as an individual. But it has been the tradition. I know a few months ago we did break that tradition. It might have been inadvertent, but in this particular instance, this evening, we have one item in front of us. We've scheduled 4 hours. We're done after Ms. Stoddard speaks. So I would, I guess what the motion is...
to suspend the rules?
Move to suspend the rules to allow people who have spoken for community council this evening to also speak individually. Second.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Weddleton, seconded by Ms. Allard. Mr. Weddleton, did you want to speak any more to that?
Well, I think I said enough. Thank you.
Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask that my colleague withdraw this motion or that we vote it down. And I think for 2 reasons. One, I think in this particular instance, there is no opportunity for Ms. Goddard to speak. We have audience participation. That's the next item. And so perhaps we could make a motion to allow her to speak. She would be speaking to an item we already had on the agenda. Maybe we can make a motion then to suspend those rules. But I'll just say, first of all, I heard what she said on behalf of the community council. I thought it was very good public testimony, and certainly something I'm going to take into account. But for my entire time on the assembly, for 6 years, it has been the case that you speak once, and you either speak on behalf of yourself or on behalf of the community council. And I don't want to, I guess I have to call her out, but Ms. Gleason, Kathy Gleason, I think she would be very surprised to discover that she could have spoken for 8 minutes, because she often runs out of time when she's speaking for 5 minutes. And she speaks very forcefully. She speaks on behalf of the community council, but she also speaks on behalf of herself. And she brings her husband, who also speaks forcefully. It has nothing to do with Ms. Goddard or her testimony, which I think is excellent, and I hope that she can speak during audience participation as well in individual capacity. But I do not think we should break this precedent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Seeing no other members in the queue, members may proceed to vote on the motion to suspend the rules.
Mr. Rivera?
No.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Perez-Verdilla? Mr. Perez-Verdilla? Ms. Quinn Davidson?
No.
The motion fails 4-6. We are back on audience participation, public testimony on item 4A. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing no one, the first public hearing on ordinance number AO 2022-37 is now closed. The second public hearing will be Tuesday, March 1 at the regular assembly meeting. Mr. Constant? I'll come back to you then. Okay. Next, we have audience participation.
Madam Chair, I make the motion to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Stoddard to testify on an item previously heard tonight.
Second.
Apparently, that motion isn't required, and the clerk will read the section of code that is relevant.
Thank you.
Through the code on appearance requests and audience participation states, if time is available, final audience participation shall be scheduled at each regular meeting. Audience participation is limited to 3 minutes of testimony per speaker, whether during initial or final. A person may testify on any topic. However, a person shall not testify on the speaker's own appearance request at the same meeting. I would like to remind the members this was changed. I believe it was in AO 2020-30S. I believe that's when the body changed it to allow any testimony on initial or final audience participation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any members of the public who wish to participate? No pressure, Ms. Stoddard. Welcome.
My name's Gretchen Stoddard. I live on Arboretum Street in the Huffman O'Malley area, and I'm testifying for myself. I'm not usually here. Apologies. I didn't realize. I don't really have very much to say, but I think this is sort of an indication that it may be time to slow this down a little bit, and that is different from what the resolution was. I live right in the middle of, I live right near South High. It's on the dividing line. I have city sewer, a block away. People have 1-acre lots. A lot of people are saying this is a different community. For me, South High is the center of my community. I don't, when I meet friends, I go to the local Kaladi or the local Steam Dot. I don't go over to Eagle River, whatever I know that we might drive by it on the way out of town and stop at that coffee shop, but we don't meet there. We're not, my kids' sports teams aren't with Eagle River. It's not, I know contiguously on the map, it looks like it's one spot, but it's not that easy to drive to Chugiak from my house, and it's not my community, and I don't think we have the same interests for our assembly person. But, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I know they're all hard decisions. I personally think I've talked to some people who think they've submitted testimony that doesn't appear to be on the website. I had asked as a person if there could be one email address to submit testimony. I don't know if all the ones going to WWMAS are getting in or not. I think I have talked to some people of my neighbors who think they've testified. I don't see their comments online, but they think they've submitted it through WWMAS. So I hope all the comments are getting in. Thank you for collecting public testimony. I would encourage you to, just slow down this a little bit, but, if you got to go ahead, you got to go ahead. We understand. Thank you for all you do.
Actually,
Honestly, I didn't mean to cause trouble.
Actually, if you would, Ms. Stoddard, if you would hold on, we've got two members with questions for you in the queue. First is Ms. Allard, and then Mr. Constant. Ms. Allard?
Ms. Stoddard, thank you for being here today. I know that I get your emails, and we don't always agree, and that's okay. I do happen to agree with you on your comment about all politics aside, the contiguous lines with Eagle River, because you're quite a ways from Chugiak Eagle River. So thank you for stepping up and testifying tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Constant?
Thank you, Ms. Stoddard. And I really want you to know I wasn't saying I didn't want you to speak again at all. It was that if we set a precedent that people will then start talking for 8 minutes, and it gets very difficult for us when we have lots of people here. And so from a precedential perspective, it's much better to have you now in this open forum than it is twice in that other from where I sit. So I apologize that it put you in that spot as well, because that wasn't really the intent. It was to keep a good practice. But I was just going to ask you a question, just kind of a thought experiment. So I recognize I've heard consistently across the community that there's not one part of Anchorage that wants to be joined with Eagle River. We've heard it across town, but someone has to. And I think the communications have been getting through, the ones that may not be listed yet. Our staff is emailing them back and asking them to go back and submit them through the portal so that the comments do get there. So that feedback loop is happening. Whether or not they reply again, I don't know. That said, here's the thought experiment. What part of town in your mind would be the most logical part of town where they do have similarities with the Eagle River, and why?
I don't know, but if you're going to have two, and tell me if this is not what I'm supposed to say, if you're going to have two downtown voting districts, then we have to rethink all of them. What people know as Midtown is some of it's going to have to move into downtown. What we think of as Abbott Loop, some of it's going to have to move in. But we're going to need once you get the two downtown districts, there's a rethink that you need. And, we're all used to, this is my boundary, this is my community council, this is it. Once you have two downtown voters, you need to adjust it all. And I don't know, but I think we all agree Girdwood and Chugiak shouldn't be in the same one, right? There is a point. I mean, I've worked downtown, so I work in Midtown now. Maybe you put us in with different groups. I don't know, but that's one thing. And two, I really hope next time we do this, I might even come up and say, let's get a charter change. But next time we do this, there are different people with different points of view submitting maps, and those are the ones. And everybody's supposed to have, the people submitting the maps are supposed to have a political point of view. But what we really want is those first maps from the consultant to come through without political, good maps at the beginning. That's what I hope we have in 10 years. That didn't answer.
To me, it's fine. No, it's a good answer. And I would suggest that to me, the hallmark of what's good about this process this year is that none of the contractors' maps were even considered in the end. It was just maps that were submitted by members of the public and groups. To me, that's actually a sign of it's working. But we can have that talk over the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Actually, Ms. Allard has a follow-up question. Normally, we don't do this kind of back and forth, but since we have a little bit of time, go ahead, Ms. Allard.
So I would agree with Mr. Constant. Nobody wants to be paired with Eagle River, and Eagle River doesn't want to be paired with anybody in Anchorage. So we have J-Bear and we have Eagle River. If you take a portion of J-Bear away from Eagle River, who we've been representing, who wants to stay with us, where would you suggest we pull from somewhere in Anchorage? You take from J-Bear, we got to pull from somewhere else. Do you have a suggestion?
I will say that when, my son was in sports, J-Bear always went with Eagle River or Chugiak. It seems like the school district boundaries, it's kind of a no-brainer that J-Bear goes with Chugiak or Eagle River. But that's more from the school sports scenario. We had our our South Side teams and West had their team, you know, to me, you draw from J-Bear first. And then if, I don't know, once that's, but the map that I have a problem with doesn't have all of J-Bear going in with Eagle River. But I'm here to talk about my neighborhood. I just be aware, like, I'm not on the dividing line between two communities. I'm at South High on Elmore, and I'm right in the middle of a community.
Thank you, Ms. Stoddard. Are there any other members of the public who wish to participate? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing and hearing no one else, we will move on to the next item, which is assembly comments.
I should.
And we'll start on this end with Mr. Weddleton. Any comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weddleton. Ms. Allard?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We actually got some good news today. And we've been waiting for this good news for quite some time. And we finally found out today how much we're going to get to help fix our port. The amount that they decided on was $367,446,809. And that is funds we will be using to continue rebuilding our port. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Rivera, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone's participation in this public hearing and all of the comments that we've been receiving via email from individuals and from community councils. Look forward to tomorrow, and then, like I've been telling all of my community councils, if we get to some type of kumbaya moment on March 1st, we'll vote. If not, we will see where we go. But I'm looking forward to hopefully the end game, so to speak, for this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Ms. Kennedy, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple, actually. One, I want to say thank you to those that did come out and testify tonight. I do appreciate them making that effort. But I am kind of disappointed in the low numbers and the low turnout for those testifying. But I think to a certain extent that may very well speak to the fact that a lot of our community councils just have not formulated their opinions on this yet, which leads me to believe that it really is going to be important to add those couple of weeks so that the community councils that meet the beginning of next month will have an opportunity to formulate their comments and get them into us. But on a more positive note and on a personal note, I would say I'm actually very pleased that we ended so soon this evening. I'm on the East Coast right now visiting family, so 10:45 at night is a whole lot better than the 4 o'clock in the morning I was afraid we might go till. So anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Constant?
I join Mr. Peterson in celebrating the victory for the Port of Alaska and all of the people who worked hard in securing that victory. I would let folks know, while it is an enormous sum, that enormous sum is to repair damages that were done by the government and its entity in the way that they implemented the project. And so it really is about somewhere between a quarter and a fifth of what we need for the overall project. So while it is a brilliant start, please don't think that it's the solution.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Ms. Zalatel?
No comments tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Mr. Dunbar?
Just one quick one. Again, with my colleagues, Mr. Bob Owens in particular was the team lead for our legal department for years. And so I want to thank him and our other counsel that we hired and everybody that put in so much work. It's a huge victory for Anchorage. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Ms. Quinn Davidson, any comments?
Sure, just quickly, thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted to hop on board with Mr. Constant, Mr. Dunbar, and Mr. Peterson, and just thank everyone who made this possible. You know, this has been something that's been going on for years and has taken hundreds of hours of legal work by teams that aren't here anymore, and I just want to say thank you to them. I think that includes Bill Falvey, probably Becky Wood Pearson, certainly Bob Owens, and also folks like Jason Buckenstead, who really provided a lot of leadership on the port, and of course Steve Buffo and others at the port. So just want to thank everyone for years of hard work that led us to this very good place. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Mr. Perez-Verdia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm have the pleasure of calling in today from beautiful Kotzebue, Alaska, and I want to thank, certainly join my colleagues in thanking the team of people and all of the efforts that led to the settlement for the port. I also want to thank everyone who's been involved in this reapportionment process. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and I really appreciate all of the emails and the phone calls and the people who've come out tonight to testify. I'm looking forward to the next round of public testimony, and just really appreciate the idea that we're gonna make sure that there's plenty of time to hear all the comments that we need, and if that means we extend the time, then I think that members are willing to do that as well. So I just want to appreciate everyone through this process and looking forward to coming to a resolution. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe night.
Thank you, Mr. Perez-Verdia. And I will just add my thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I especially want to thank residents in District 6 and the Community Council, presidents, and board members, and HALO for being extremely active in the reapportionment process and for your feedback and resolutions. And I'm very much looking forward to, and these are my comments now, just doing my comments section, just so you know, I'm not just editorializing. I thought I'd better point that out since the chair isn't supposed to do that. But I'm very much looking forward to the work session tomorrow on reapportionment and being able to participate in, with the other members, since it's been primarily focused on the committee discussion. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that conversation as we work through the process of the maps. And again, thanks to all of you for your comments and for the work you've done. And with that, we are now at adjournment. Is there a motion?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.